Just if you notice, this is my new T-shirt. So, on longwayup.com, I'm just saying, I don't want to sort of push anything right at the beginning.
Do you know what? Don't worry. We can plug everything at the end.
I feel so embarrassed. That,
hey, no, it's shameless promoting.
Longwayup.com. Oh, no, I haven't said it again. I'm sorry.
So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got a great guest. Personally, I think he's amazing, and his adventures are continuing on Apple TV Plus on Long Way Up, that's streaming every single Friday. I am absolutely glued. Episode 5 left with a cliffhanger. My guest is, of course, Mr. Charley Boorman. Charley, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, it's lovely because it's been a few years since I've been able to walk, really, and then get out and do some work and do those sort of TV shows that I love making. So I'm really happy to be here.
And I'm glad you're back because, do you know what? Long Way Down, and then we've got Long Way Up now, and the gang is back together. So we've got not only Russ, David, and Ewan, but we've got Claudio as well, which I'm really pleased to see. So how did this adventure start then? Who came up with the first idea of going all electric all the way up South America?
I know. Well, sometimes I'd love to take the credit for coming up with the idea of electric, but there were plenty of times, sort of in the first sort of third of the TV show, that I was so glad I wasn't the actual instigator. I think that it's been quite a long time since Ewan and I did Long Way Round, or we did Long Way Round, then we did Long Way Down, and then it was 12 years before we did this one. And I think after Long Way Down, which is the sort of second one, which you can actually see them on Apple TV. Yeah. They're all kind of repolished up and all that kind of stuff. So, and then Ewan got busy with making movies. He was living in LA. I was living over here. When he was over here making a movie, I was off somewhere else making the TV show. And so we never really we didn't see each other for ages. So these sort of two friends were just sort of parallel living, like occasionally talking to each other, Yeah. And then I had this big crash in 16, and then and really smashed myself up, and then I remember Ewan ringing my phone up, and he found out. I think Ollie had told him that he found out, and he rang, and some stranger answered the phone and said, "Look, it's Charlie's phone," and he said, "Where is he?" And he goes, "Well, he's in an operation. He's already been in for 3 or 4 hours. He's in for another 3 or 4 hours. We're not sure if we're going to, if we're going to save his leg, and et cetera, et cetera." It was all quite dramatic. Luckily, I was just passed out, and then I think he thought, well, this is crazy that we haven't really sort of seen each other. And then, so he kind of reached out a bit more, and we sort of both made a bit more of an effort. And then I had a second crash that was like a real massive one. The second one was probably worse than the first one, and that was in the middle of Africa, and smashed pelvis and forearm and head injuries and all this kind of stuff. I just blame any bad moods on head injuries or arguments with my wife. It was the knock of the head. I'm sorry, but and then so Ewan then came over here making a movie because I was stuck. I wasn't going anywhere, and then he came and stayed for a weekend and ended up staying for about a month, and we just got on just like best mates getting back together. Funny how when you haven't seen a great friend for a long time, you just carry on where you left off as if nothing had happened. And we'd always spoken about another one. Then we started talking about this new one. I said, thinking actually I think we're ready to do it, and so we got Russ and Dave over who helped us produce the other two as well. And we said, look, let's do this. And we were all talking about, mixing it up and making it feel different and all this kind of stuff. And then Russ said, well, what about electric? Not very many people have really done it, really. And had we been intelligent about it, we'd have said, well, quite rightly. but we thought, wow, now that's an idea. Not many people have done it. Let's give it a go. Let's pave the way. Let's see if we can do it. And that sort of started the journey.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite episodes so far is when the temperature went very, very low, and you went into that makeshift sort of hotel and you plugged it in, then all the power went. And I just thought,
Oh,
wow.
it was like, oh my God. And then we had to get the bikes into the building because it was so cold outside that they just wouldn't take a charge. And then we thought we'd heat them up, and then we were putting blankets on them. And the truth of it is that when we decided to do it electric, we rang a lot of the bigger, more known brands that you would think of, like Kawasaki and Yamaha and all this, and nobody was really anywhere with the technology, and it was only really Harley that, and you would think Harley Davidson, you'd think you'd think, oh, we're going to go on this big adventure with a Harley Davidson. People go, really? And you go, yeah, and then you go, oh, by the way, they're electric, and people go, what? Electric?
Yeah, because
were you
everyone's
kidding me?
impression
What, Harley
of
Davidson?
Harley Davidson are massive engines. You start it up and you feel it in your chest and everything like that. So it's
and your
got to
next door
be
neighbors and the cars and the alarms in the cars, I mean, all set everything off, these big V twin thumpers, and people just, people would laugh about it. And anyway, so but they've been developing that bike for 5 or 6 years. It's really run its ground. We met them and we said, look, we'd love you to do this, but would you be able to make them a bit more beefy, a bit more adventurous? And anyway, they came back, a number of weeks later. Sorry about that. They came back a number of weeks later, and they wheeled out this adventure bike that we used, and they changed the front end for a bigger one. That they're Pan American. They're making an adventure bike at the moment, and they used that, and they just made this amazing bike for us, and it was just so obvious that anyway. So we did all that, and then we chose 2 electric pickup trucks first as the chase vehicles, and then and then we went down to Ushuaia, bottom of Argentina, and then it was the worst winter in 30 years, and freezing cold, and we had to delay it 5 days because there was just a blizzard outside for 5 days, and we left with snow, 10 feet either side of the road. I remember Ewan stopping. We stopped to go and have a pee on the first day up, and Ewan went over the snow to walk into the woods to have a pee, and he dropped to about this far into the snow. It was so cold. But anyway, we arrived in Ushuaia with all the vehicles, and then realized that we'd only ridden these bikes for a couple of hours, and had never really charged. Didn't know anything about them.
Wow.
Spanish wasn't great, So yeah, we were certainly prepared.
I've got to say, Bolivia so far is, I would say, where things started to get real. From the ride-in. So obviously you got injured back in 2016. How did that affect this adventure? Did it affect you in many ways, or were you scared? Or
I think it's funny when I think when you have a big trauma in your life, and it doesn't matter what it is, sometimes you can get people can get trapped in that trauma and can't push through. And you hear about it all the time, don't you? About people doing that. And I remember having this big crash, and I woke up the next morning, and both my legs were in plaster, and my right hand was in plaster. And I was in Portugal, and I still remember that. It was a brutal crash, and I was awake for the whole thing, and I felt every bump. And I remember always when you ride a motorbike, what you do if you fall off the motorbike, the first thing you do is you jump up, pick the motorbike up and get on it, and then before your mates turn up, and then you just pretend that there was nothing to see here,
Yeah.
And they go, did you fall over? And you go, no. Did you? Anyway, so I went to get up, and then I went to step on my left leg, and I looked down, and there was just this leg just flopping around in all the wrong directions. And anyway, so I woke up, and I looked at these 3 limbs, and I thought, I was starting to feel really sorry for myself, and I'm thinking, well, if only I'd left the hotel 1 minute earlier, or 1 minute later, or I don't know. All these things were going through in my mind, and then I noticed that I wasn't the only person in the room, and I looked over, and there was a guy who'd had a crash as well, and he was in a terrible state, and I mean, so much worse than me, and I remember looking at him, I remember looking at myself, and I remember chuckling to myself, thinking, you know what, Charlie, actually, it's not that bad. And I was
So,
thinking, actually, this is all right, you know. So I kind of from that point on, it was, and then the surgeon came to me and said, Charlie, Portuguese guy said, you know, he said, I'm just a glorified carpenter. I just put it back together. You'll be fine. And I thought, all right, okay, that's fine. I'm a glorified carpenter.
glorified
Not what you want to
carpenter.
hear.
Wow. So how long did it take you from that accident to actually getting back on the bike?
Yeah, that took, well, it didn't take that long because I came back, then I had to have a cage on my leg to hold it all together, because in this external thing, it's really ugly looking thing with wires going through. And I realized that I was in bed for ages, and then I was using a bedpan, which is not very nice. And then I could get into a wheelchair. And then my goal was just to sit on the toilet so that I could, you know, do my business on the toilet. That became my absolute goal, and I managed that eventually. And then straight after that, I thought, well, you know, my wife's got a scooter, and I because the chain around my the frame around my leg wouldn't allow me to get my leg close enough to change gear.
Right.
So I couldn't get my foot in to change gear. But so I thought, if I get the scooter, I don't have to change gear, I just have to twist and go. And so once my right ankle started to get better, where I could put a bit of weight on it with crutches, I then would go up. I've got this restaurant in Shoreditch called the Bike Shed, and we were just sort of open. We just opened it and stuff like that. It's been open for about 4 years now. It's a lovely place, but so I get the scooter off the center stand, and I would sit on the scooter, and I'd put my crutches between my arms, and I'd ride up from South London up to North London, and then as I came into the Bike Shed, I would stop and I'd beat the horn, and someone from the restaurant who works there would come in and take my Vespa, because I didn't have the strength to put it on the center stand. So I felt like Valentino Rossi or some motorcycle rider. I'd come up and someone would grab the bike, and I'd get up with my crutches, and I'd walk off and then put it on the center stand and give me the key. So that took a number of years.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until last August that I really felt strong enough and went back to the gym properly and got myself fit. And then we flew down to Argentina and got on the bikes. And I'd been riding bikes quite a lot, because I then rode my motorbike in South Africa and had that second crash, which took a lot longer to fix. So going through, I was all right going through all that deep sand and gravel and stuff like that. But there was just in the back of my mind, when it got really tough and it started getting wobbly, and I think Ewan was very nervous as well, thinking, God, if you fall now, and I've got so much metal in my legs, if all that bent, you'd be lying there with these legs bent in all sorts of weird directions with this metal that's
in the middle of nowhere.
It's just the middle of nowhere. So so it was, and we fell a few times, and you know, you were. But then when you get to those situations where you're in the really bad thing, and you're all going, oh God, oh oh no, you know, we're both doing that. That's when you start to laugh, because you're quite nervous, you're quite worried. Big bikes and deep sand is not very nice. And so the harder it gets, the more you start to giggle and laugh, you know, and those are the things that you remember most about any journey, that we all do. You know, we don't remember that lying on the beach every day, but we remember that crazy taxi drive home from the nightclub, or with the rent a car, the flat tire went wrong, and then there was the spare tire was flat as well, and had to get someone to help. You know, you remember those. Absolutely, and you hate it at the time, but afterwards you laugh most about. So you know, sometimes the journey, the breakdowns and the mess ups and the things that go wrong are the journey.
Yeah, I mean, 3 months away as well is quite a long time. What does your wife think of you being away for 3 months?
Well, I was sort of stuck at home for 4 years, so the minute she heard the idea of it, I came
She's signing
downstairs and
you
my
up.
suitcase was sitting by the front door. She's going, well, you said you were going. So
Excellent. Excellent.
I think no, I think she was a little nervous. I think because I'd had these two big accidents, one and then 2 years later another one, and so she was like, I'm not going to fly out to another f bad
Yeah.
words place to repatriate you again. So so don't do it. So that was the instructions. Um, but it was but it was lovely. It was lovely to be able to work again. I hadn't worked for 4 years. It was lovely to get out there. It was lovely to get back on the saddle properly. And as Ewan said on, I think on one of the episodes, he's that familiarity of riding when Ewan's in front of you or in your mirror. That there's a tremendous familiarity of having that that sort of image burnt onto your mind. And Ewan and I have done these three big trips, and we've gone through all sorts of stuff together. And often people say, that if you do a trip, sometimes you can be the best of friends, but sometimes you can travel together and these kind of things, and it doesn't work. And for some people, we've met people it's happened to, have decided to go their own way because it just hasn't worked. And so we're super lucky. Ewan, and I'm very lucky. I think Ewan is very tolerant, very patient, which he probably needs to be with me. And we have a great understanding of each other. We respect each other. We seem to understand what each other person is feeling. So how to leave the guy alone, or leave, or tell a joke or make him laugh or something like that.
Yeah, you definitely complement each other. And the great thing
Yeah.
is there is no petrol involved. So there's going to be no petrol in eyes.
I don't know. Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. That happened once. Okay. And then for the last
I'm sure it was
14
twice, wasn't
years.
it?
Oh, it's true.
Yes. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, he shouldn't have been there,
Exactly. It's his own fault.
It's his own fault.
It's petrol. It's
he shouldn't have
dangerous.
been looking at the bedroom. But,
So, yeah, go on,
but it was strange. And yeah, go on. Sorry.
No. I was going to say that obviously we're on episode 5 at the moment. Can you give any exclusives of what we've got to look forward to? Any memories of any upcoming episodes that are exciting?
Well, I don't know. Ever since
they're
I've
all
had
exciting,
that bang on the head, I just can't seem to remember anything anymore.
It's 3 months. Yeah, it's all merged into one, I suppose.
No, I think there's lots of coming. There's Machu Picchu coming. There's Peru. We went to some amazing Colombia and Central America, which I was really, out of all of the whole trip, that Central American part for me was the bit that I was looking forward to, and as a little bit more than the others. And I think we're coming up to Costa Rica, which was a really interesting place. Where the first light bulb that was ever turned on in Costa Rica was powered by renewable energy, and something like 90% of Costa Rica is powered by renewable energy, and they don't have a military, so all the money that they would have spent on the military, they spend on renewables and education and infrastructure and stuff like that. And not only that, is the greatest beaches you've ever come across. I mean, oh my gosh, and the food and the people, and it's just an amazing place. And so I love that. And the Panama Canal, I'd always wanted to go to the Panama Canal and have a look, and especially since they've done that sort of super locks they've done now. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
So how many times have you replaced your passport, just out of curiosity?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, funny enough, I travel with a couple of passports. So
Right, okay.
So which you can easily get if you want one. And often because you're going through lots of different countries quite quickly, some countries it takes much longer to get a visa from that country or something. So sometimes you have to swap it. The best one is when you're at a border and you've arrived in one passport and you're leaving with the other one because the visa is in the other passport, and some people get like, what?
And that is what happened with
things,
Ewan, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's exactly what happened with you. So that can be a negative as well. But the other thing, so what you do a lot of the time as well, is when you're going through borders, you have to do carnets. So a carnet basically is that as you're going into a country, you say, yes, this is my bike, these are my cameras, these are my this and that and the other, and they do a checklist, and then when you leave that country, they make sure that everything's there, and you haven't sold the motorbike in the country and to make a profit. Anyway, so we're still lining up to wait for this guy, and I give him the papers, and he says chassis number, and he goes chassis number, and he goes engine number, and I said it doesn't have one, and he goes no, come on, engine number, and I go no, it doesn't have one, and then he started roaring with laughter because he'd forgotten that it was, and he brought it, and this is the first time there was no engine going. 40 years I've been working here,
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So there's some lovely funny moments, and then there's always just the banter and the taking winding each other up and stealing each other's biscuits and all that kind of stuff. It's all just funny little silly things that just make you laugh.
And that's a great thing about the show, because with everything happening in the world right now, everything's a bit down. So that show to me is such an escape, which is great. Did you keep the bike at all?
No. The bike gets sent to. So bizarrely, in all these trips, we've always kind of on long way round. We sort of rode home, I suppose. And Africa one, we had to ship them back from South Africa. And this one though, we rode up through South America. And Ewan lives in LA, and so when we crossed into America and that's when we got the fast chargers. I mean, that was we were struggling to do 150 miles each day, and charging overnight. Anyway, we left late on the first morning in the States and headed towards the charger, and we're thinking, how are we going to make 150 miles today because we're late? And we got to the first charger, and we plugged it in, and it felt a little bit like when you come across someone who's seen escalators for the first time, moving escalators, and you sit there and you're looking at this escalator and you're going, it's moving. How does it move? And that's what we felt like when we plugged in and go, it's charging. It's charging really fast, and suddenly we got 80% of charge in about 35 minutes or 40 minutes.
Wow.
And it was like, and we went from struggling to do, 150 miles a day to we did 230 miles that day. And it was like a game changer. And these chargers are everywhere in the States, and they are everywhere in Britain. And so, it's like, actually you could cross America or cross Europe quite happily,
That is awesome.
So we arrived back, and then we got back and had this little mates riding in on the bikes came with us. We went to the bike shed in LA, and then we had this sort of wrap up party, and then Ewan said, right guys, I'll see you later, I'm riding home. And he rode the bike home and unpacked his bags at home. It was fantastic.
So before we wrap up this wonderful interview, your T-shirt that you've got on now, Long Way Up, where can people purchase this wonderful garment?
Well, you can just go onto the website longwayup.com, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there actually, and there's a whole bunch of stuff coming as well. So there's a whole handful of lots of different designs and stuff like that, and then if people want to watch it, then go on to Appletv, and Long Way Up is there, and Long Way Round and Long Way Down are there as well.
And are we going to get a book as well to go with?
Yeah, for sure. The book, DVD, poster, mug, wig, shoes,
excellent.
underpants.
CharleyBoorman.com.
CharleyBoorman.com. You can buy it all.
Use socks and everything from the
Actually,
long way
all
up
our
adventure.
underpants.
Did you? Good.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
we can use them 4 days in a row.
Inside
one way, the other way,
upside
inside
down.
out, the other way.
That is awesome. Charley, you've been a great guest. I've really enjoyed myself. And I can't wait for the next episode to see if Russ survives whatever happened at the end, because he was in the Rivian and it was about to crash and it all went black. So
funny enough, I haven't seen him since, so I don't know where he is.
Oh no.
So,
Oh no. Bring on Friday. Bring on Friday.
All right,
Charley,
guys. Listen, it's been lovely
look
to
after
see you.
yourself.
Yeah, pleasure. Okay, take care.